Welcome to Create Your Happy, the podcast that empowers conscious women in life, relationship, and business. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness hussy and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. Now get ready, because on this very special bonus season, we are going to take your entrepreneurial journey to a whole nother level. These uncut conversations are designed to support you as you unleash your entrepreneurial brilliance upon the world. My incredible guests and I have come together with a shared vision to empower women to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and lead with love. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Hello, conscious creators. Welcome to the second masterclass in this incredible masterclass series. I'm super excited to have the beautiful Larissa Soehn here with me today, and we are going to be sharing with you some wisdom about writing that book, right? Stepping into your authority and becoming an author. So welcome, Larissa. Thanks for joining me, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are to kick us off, that would be incredible.
Absolutely. So my name is Larissa Soehn, and I am the CEO and founder of Next Page Publishing, which was really built on the backs of helping authors tell their story their way on their terms to grow their businesses. So we're all about entrepreneur support, helping coaches, share their message, change the world in a way that they can grow their business. I 10x my business on the back of my book. You've built a business with your book, or your book was a product of your business. And it just is it's a tool that I believe every author and every entrepreneur should be able to have and know how to leverage. And so we teach you all the way from how do you write the book? How do you write a book? Like, that's some of the most daunting parts, right? It's like, where do you start? So we teach you where to start. We teach you how to speak the language of your ideal reader. And then we take you all the way through to the end of published. So you're with us for quite some time. We become like a little family. We get to know you and your story very, very intimately, and give you the support that you need to feel like, you are supported and this is going to be successful for you. Because Christy, you and I know writing a book can be isolating. It can be a very lonely process.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I wrote my book, which I have right here, Unstuck for Women. I wrote it completely by myself, and I actually had a friend help me with some of the editing, because sometimes you just need another set of eyes. So thankfully I had someone in my network who, thank you to Haley, who stepped up and helped me with some of that editing and giving me a little bit of feedback. She was actually an incredible person to actually have step up and read it, because she was so intimately familiar with all the topics in there, and as well as being naturally a good editor. So I'm super grateful, but it is not easy to do all of these things alone. And I know, because I'm writing my next book. I have a couple of other projects in the go, and actually have a companion journal coming for Unstuck very, very soon. Fingers crossed, the proof is on its way. But then I also have my next book, which is Unstuck for Relationships. And it's a much bigger project. And so I am already feeling like, okay, I know I'm not sure if I can do this one on my own. It starts to feel a little overwhelming if I think about the editing process, right? Yeah. So it can be so helpful to have that support, have that team behind you to make the whole process just that much easier. And then also, I'll tell you what, there's a whole lot of trial and error and learning as far as self-publishing a book on Amazon and stuff too, right? Yes. So that is part of, we'll say it's an adventure.
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, I know. Like when I published my first business book, I spent more time fiddling with it in Amazon than I did actually writing the book.
I had so many finicky issues actually with my book cover. And you know what? I went back and forth and trying all these things. And what I realized, it just was a silly thing. It was the tiniest nonsensical thing that was holding it up. And it was that the Y in my name was, below the line. And causing a problem with the printing margins. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like literally the tail end of the Y that was messing up my whole submission process and blocking it. So it can be a real challenge. So if you're, if that seems really overwhelming and like that's not something you want to do, there are tons of people out there just like Larissa that can support you through that process, even of self-publishing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's four key pillars to writing and publishing a book. And the last one is publishing. And that's the spot where I think a lot of authors like, okay, I'm done. This will be easy. Like just hit the button. It is not. It is a pillar all in itself because it can kill a project because it's complicated. And if you're not technologically inclined or you don't have the time or patience to learn, it can be a lot for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But we don't want that to stop or scare anybody off from doing the process of writing that book and getting your message out there, because the truth is you have a unique story and the world needs to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only one who can tell that story, your story from your perspective, and share the wisdom that only you can have having gone through all of those experiences.
Yeah.
And I know that's what drove me to write my book. It's just I found this sort of recurring theme of people being sort of in this, like I say, stuck. I'm not sure everybody would use the word stuck, but this kind of stuck spot where they're just not sure how or where to move forward from there. Mm-hmm. They're, struggling with the overwhelm and the anxiety and all of those things. And I just found that was such a common thread that it only made sense to share the wisdom that I learned from my personal experience of overcoming the anxiety and the overwhelm, and how that could actually really help other people who are in a similar situation now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that blends perfectly into where our first topic for the conversation is, why do people not write their book? Like what gets in the way and makes them go from, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I have a story to tell, to it breaks on, no way, I can't do that. And this is, it happens so often. I'm actually on my own personal Facebook page right now doing a 10-day series of the top 10 reasons people don't write their book. And we don't have time for all 10. They're all very valid, but a lot of them actually boil down to one. And I'll kind of wrap this up with that. But the first one is that perfectionism.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it has to be perfect. The time has to be perfect. The topic has to be perfect. I have to present it perfectly. And perfect just doesn't exist. No. And I have a blog about this on bestsellerbootcamp.ca that if you wait for the perfect time, you will never, ever do it. Right? Like it's like having a child. And I like it. I put this right in my blog. I've said this on radio shows. It is like a child. There is no perfect time for that child to come into this world. The world will never be perfectly ready for them. You will never be perfectly ready for them. No one can prepare you for how much sleep deprivation you're going to get.
That's the truth right there. And perfection is completely an illusion. It's a fabricated thing that no one has managed to accomplish. So it's a futile effort to continue striving towards this illusory idea of perfection anyways.
Yeah. So that's like one of the biggest things people will say to me, or especially in the editing process. Oh, it need it to be perfect. Well, perfect doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And perfect is also subjective in the editing sense, because you and I are Canadian. My Canadian English is different than the American English, right? And so Americans sometimes pick up my book and think it's riddled with spelling mistakes. And it's like, no, I'm Canadian, right? So even that, looking at perfectionism in that sense, it just doesn't exist. It doesn't.
Yeah. But if you stay waiting for it, you will remain stuck in analysis paralysis. You will remain frozen where you are and not moving forward. So how, Larissa, can we move out of this perfection tendency so that we can actually do the freaking thing?
Yeah, do the freaking thing. That's right. So if you reframe perfectionism into, what do I need in this moment? So I never need perfect. I've never needed perfect in my entire life to feel good about something. And I'm stroking my coffee as I say this, because the only thing that's perfect is a cup of coffee. That's the only thing you're going to find that's perfect. But that need can be filled without perfection. You can still feel really, really good with little slips and little errors. And if you look at those little slips and little errors as like room to grow, to get better, and let go of this idea that you have to be perfect. No one should ever expect you to be perfect. no, you should never expect that of someone else. Like, imagine if Christy, if I went to you and I said, hey, you're not exactly perfect today. I'm going to need you to go back and try again.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, we wouldn't be friends anymore.
That's some high expectations.
That is. So why would you have those of yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I had an email go out the other day, and I've posted about this on Facebook. I am my own worst enemy for perfectionism. I do have a high standard. And I sent out an email the other day that had the wrong two. It was supposed to be TOO and it was two.
I saw your
And
post.
it bugged me, right? At first I was like, oh, that's an unfortunate mistake. Like, not a big deal. But then someone emailed me and was like, you spelt the wrong two. And my first thought was, okay, so what? But did you see the difference? Like, in my own mind, I was like, oh, that's really disappointing. And then somebody pointed out to me, I was like, why are you expecting me to be perfect?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a fair expectation. I wouldn't hold you up to that standard. There was 1,000 words in that email and I got one wrong.
haven't they ever typed a thing and made a typo? Like,
right?
Hello, human. We're human. We're not, I don't know. AI probably even make mistakes too sometimes. So
all the
there
time.
you have it, right?
All the time.
So,
yeah.
We're allowed to be human. And it's important to be able to course correct along the way. Ultimately, this is how we keep moving forward without getting caught up in this idea of perfection. We just adjust course. We make mistakes. We learn from it. We grow from it. We move forward.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I made so many mistakes while publishing or attempting to publish my book. And I had to go back. I had to fix some things and I had to go forward. And then I had to fix some things and I had to go forward. And it was an adventure all in itself, honestly, to get from the writing. That was one thing that was a part. And then it was that whole process of publishing it. And then the whole process of marketing it and getting the word out there. And then even then, way after the fact, I discovered that there was some kind of weird glitch in one of the documents that I uploaded, and a part of my book, one page was missing from the printed book. And a friend was like, oh, you mentioned some journaling prompts, but I don't see them. And I was like, oh my God, where the fuck are the journaling prompts? Like, where did they go? I looked at the PDF. I'm like, oh my God, they went poof. They disappeared.
Yeah.
So if anybody else notices, apologies. I put them actually on my website in my freebies bonus section in case anybody dared to check there for this thing that somehow got mistakenly glitched out of my document. I put it back in, and like that, what else can I do? I can't turn back the clock. I'm not going to recall the books, you have to just really get okay with making mistakes. That's a lesson for humanity, right?
Well, I have a mistake in this book. So I use Grammarly for a lot of my first round editing, as a lot of authors should. And when I am editing in Word, in Grammarly, sometimes it glitches out. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where it'll replace a word, but it replaces the word in the middle of the wrong word. So I have a spelling mistake in my book that is a word split in half by the right spelling of the word. And I caught it within the first 10 prints. But there are 10 versions of my best-selling book out there that have a huge typo. And that is what I like working about. Like, what I like with working with authors is that I can share that story and give them permission to let go of perfectionism. I am a publisher. I have been doing this for years. I've written over 10 books, and I made that mistake. And it is okay. My world did not end. It did not lose any credibility. I still make a ton of money off of that book. And you know what? Now there's 10 limited editions out there.
Yeah.
They have this unique little thing.
I also have a limited edition. Again, one of the little lessons that I learned, this was the original title of my book, which then was renamed Unstuck for Women. But apparently Amazon is more PG than I am. So little lesson learned there, that if the cover is fully expressive of your authentic self, that you might not be able to run Amazon ads. So if that's important, maybe something to consider for all of you aspiring authors out there, to just keep that outside of your book nice and clean so that you don't run into any problems on the back end of Amazon ads.
Yeah.
Or you can do like I did, which was to then scale that back and come up with a whole nother process so that I could get into that advertising without those problems.
Yeah, totally. So that's the perfectionism, right? Like we all have that feeling that we need to be perfect, but it kills progress. It kills the the permission we give ourselves to learn and grow. If you expect perfectionism, then you have to be perfect. There's no room for growth. It means you can't do better. And that just isn't fun. I don't want to live like that where everything is going to be exactly as it is without growth. Growth is amazing. So the next one, Christy, and I think you and I know this very well, is time. And it comes back to, I don't have time for that. I couldn't possibly write a book. And this book, the one that kicked off my business, I wrote it in 12 weeks. And I did it about, I'd say 30 minutes a day of writing.
Yeah.
5 days a week. Because I set aside my family time. Family time is, solid. Don't do that. And I wrote it and it was bestseller within 4 hours. Like, it doesn't take it. And if it's a priority to you, if this is something that's important to you, you'll find 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
Yep.
Just do it.
And if ever you catch yourself saying, I don't have time, and this literally applies to anything, I don't have time, it's actually so you're not making it a priority, or it's not that important to you in this moment. And that can be okay, but it's just important that you be honest with yourself that it's not that you don't have time, it's that it's not a priority right now.
Yeah.
Right. And coming from that space of honesty really allows you to get perspective. And if you realize that you're not making it a priority and you're like, oh shit, actually, I really want to make this a priority. Why do I keep making this, telling myself I don't have time? Now you're in a position to take radical responsibility and create the time, right? Prioritize it.
Yeah. And a lot of it comes down to that mind frame of, I don't have time to do this chore. Writing is a chore. But what if writing was fun? What if it was your self-care time, that reflective time that you need, that time alone, that time with your coffee that resets you and recharges you for the day or helps you process the day? You might look at it differently. Oh, I don't have time for me for 30 minutes today? Like that, I don't want that. I don't want to live in that world, right? Like books are incredibly healing processes to go on and write if you let them in that way. The style of book we publish is a mixture of sharing knowledge and teaching and sharing your story. So it's transformative, it's healing. It takes you on a journey that, if you open yourself up to this book, can change your life personally and professionally.
Absolutely. And it's such a great tool to lend to your credibility. It's a great tool to have in your business toolbox.
Yeah.
To help, future clients or current clients or whoever might need that, or just people at large, because it just allows you to reach a much larger audience, right? So that helps you to create, if you're into it. And I know that the people inside of the community that this masterclass is being aired in, the Conscious Creator Collective, I know you're a change maker. I know you're on a mission to make a freaking difference in this world. And this is such an incredible tool to get that message out to the masses in a much more impactful way. Yeah.
I love that you more impactful, because in this day and age, this is a long masterclass. You're going to sit with me for an hour, the two of us for an hour. A book you can sit with for upwards of 6 hours over multiple days, right? Like some people might read our book for a week, half an hour here and there. They might sit with it for 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks. Like that exposure time to you and your consistent message and your brand. It's like, compare it to a 30-second reel that you see, or, the minute you spend reading a post that someone spent a long time crafting that post and you scroll on by. Like that retention, that ability to sit with you and your message, nothing else covers it like a book. Maybe a 6-hour movie, but who's going to watch that?
Maybe a whole podcast series, just saying. But
yeah, a whole podcast series. Yeah, you binge it. You just go after it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's such a great tool, and it really just allows you to share your message in a different way, which actually brings together some of the other pieces, right? You can also be sharing some of your message through those videos, through those reels, through your written social media content, and invite people into a really immersive experience between that and your book.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's one of the fears people have, is they're looking at all of this media that's out there, the news, the videos, the TV, radio, podcasts, books and they're looking at their message and thinking, how can I possibly say something that hasn't already been said? How
Yeah.
can I possibly come up with a unique angle? And you said it at the very beginning of this class was no one knows your story like you do. And that goes true for your experiences and your knowledge as well. I'm taking my psychology degree right now and minoring in marketing. And I look at my classmates and we're all from like, my goodness, some of them are 12 years old. And they're in this class with me. I'm one of the older ones in the class. And I'm looking at them and their eyes are glazed over, especially in marketing. Their eyes are glazed over. They're not paying attention. And to me, I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, this is so exciting because I have lived a life. I am in the industry of needing to know marketing. The way I'm taking in that knowledge is so much different than them. And then on the flip side, the way I present that knowledge is going to be different.
Yeah. I think it's just like I had this friend who she's a doctor, and actually I met her in a, new moms group when I had my first son. And I just really remember her saying that when she had her baby, it completely shifted her perspective on her medical practice with expectant mothers and with parents and with all of this stuff. So it's just to say that, like, you can have theoretical knowledge about something. You can read a book and you can get in theoretical knowledge and it's sort of a general understanding. But your experience of it, your lived experiential knowledge is the game changer. And that is what people need to hear. That's why they need to hear it from you, right? That is what makes your message unique. That is what makes your voice so important that it needs to be heard, because you are speaking from a place of experiential knowledge. I hope when you're writing your book, that is the intention, right? That this is something you've lived. And not everyone can say that. So that when you speak to the people who haven't yet lived it, now you can inspire them. Now you can lend them some of your belief from having experienced it firsthand, show them what's possible. And at least that's a lot of the motivating factor for me writing my book.
Yeah. Well, and even if you look at, so let's say I wrote on your topic, you and I went and a teacher gave us a theme and said, Christy, you're going to write on this theme. Larissa, you're going to write on this theme. And then we came out and I bet you, I know our books would be 100% different because of our lived experiences, because of our tone, because of our voice, everything about that would be different. And your book would appeal to some people and my book would appeal to the other people. And it'd be on the same topic. So there, that fear of, well, everything's already been said, but it hasn't been said your way. It hasn't been said in your voice, in your tone, with your messaging. And the world needs that because there are people that need your book in your tone, in your voice.
They're actually out there waiting for you to write the damn thing. So, those of you watching either live or on the replay, just massive encouragement to take the first steps, because I think a lot of times we hold back because we're not clear, we're not sure, and so we do nothing. Yeah. And that's a huge mistake, because the truth is the clarity comes in the doing, right? Yeah. I know that if we look back and we think about this one, you'll know what I'm saying is the truth. The clarity did not come before you started taking action. The clarity came through the taking action, one baby step at a time. Just start writing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like with my business book, I thought I had programs that were really solid. And then I wrote the book and I was like, nope, I need to go back. I need to tweak some things, because writing, when you write, something different happens in your brain. You process it in a different way rather than even talking about it. Like, I talked to my husband about all of my programs and what I'm going to put in them. And that's very immediate response. It's a conversation. You're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you're always in this spot, most of us anyways, because we're not the best active listeners. We listen to respond. Yeah. Versus when you're writing, you're not talking to anybody really other than someone in your own head. And so you're writing, you're reflecting, and you're moving forward. And you're writing and you're reflecting and you're moving forward. And you look at things from a new angle. And it changed my programs entirely. And they are so much better for it.
I think it helps us really cultivate that clarity, right? Because it forces us. The thing about the human experience, to express it to another, requires a level of clarity in our languaging.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to be aware of different interpretations and different meanings. So there's tons of different ways of someone else receiving that. So we have to really be intentional with the words we're choosing, the way we're putting them together. And in having to do that process, oh my gosh, the clarity that will come. I also will have to say that I have another book that future book. It's got a lot of words in it, but I felt like it wasn't ready and I needed a little bit more growth before I come back to it, because the clarity I felt like was not 100% there. And I'm not on a perfectionist standpoint, but I had this sense of like, I'm going to have these other books first, and they're going to lead up to this book when I feel like I'm actually got the clarity and I'm ready to finish that thing.
Well, a lot of it comes back to like, what is your why for the book? And in a lot of cases, people, they start out, especially the people I deal with, well, I want to be an authority. I want to be, looked at as an authority figure, as a confidant in this topic. But usually it comes down to, I want to leave a legacy, and I want to tell my story, and I want to change someone's life. Like fundamentally, that's what we're looking at doing. And a lot of stuff happens in that process. We have to grow a lot. A lot of authors come in thinking, I'm ready to tell my story. And then they get halfway through and they're like, oh my goodness, what is happening? Because we're looking at it new, right? We're growing as we're writing. And I've had authors, write chapters in collaboration books, and they go in and they think it's going to be about one thing. And by the end, it's entirely different. Because our brains just lead us to something more. Our hearts take us to something more, something that we ourselves needed. And if we need it, the world needs it.
Yeah. And it is interesting, I think, in life. We'll go through and we'll go into something with certain expectations. And so often those expectations may not be met, but we'll get something that we needed more. Yeah. And that can be really frustrating. And I know I've done that. I've jumped into some different courses and things like that with a certain expectation. Didn't get that. But what I got was actually what I needed. Yeah. Which is interesting. And that was not really intentional, because it's not like the person was like tricking me into that. It's just that I came through and realized, okay, that thing I thought I needed was actually not it. Yeah. But I found the thing that I needed along the way, because now I had the clarity of what wasn't it. It created space. And now I could move towards what was it. Yeah. And that's kind of the same thing with this book. I'm just kind of waiting for that clarity to be really clear on the messaging, just how it's all coming together. I just know I have a little bit more personal growing to do on my end before I can really put my entire magical message into that book. It's going to be amazing when it happens, but
yeah. And a lot of times we're writing to younger versions of ourselves. Yeah. We're writing the book that, oh my gosh, I wish I had had this in my 20s, or when I was starting my business, or when I met, the man that either changed or ruined my life, one way or the other, right? And we're writing this.
I have both of those.
Right? You're writing this love letter to who we were and what we needed at the time. And we can get really personal about it, but there is someone else out there that is like you, or was like you 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, that needs your message. You can literally change their life with your message.
Absolutely. There's someone out there right now who is in that spot that needs to actually hear exactly what you have to say. It'll be their comfort. It'll be their encouragement. It'll be the catalyst to their transformation. Maybe there's a whole bunch of people. I mean, we've got 8.8 billion people on the planet. I'm pretty sure there's a handful that really, truly need to hear what you have to say, you and your specific message. Yeah. And not only that, but you can use this to help yourself grow in the process. So it's really a win-win-win all around.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. It's for you and your business, right? And a lot of times we mix those two together. I am my business. No, there's a lot more to you than your business.
Yeah. You have a relationship with your business though, right? And the relationship, this is what I love to talk about, the relationship with self, because that relationship with self actually plays out in the relationship you have with your business as well. So I think that is probably why this process can bring up some things right? Because it's reflecting back to you some stuff that maybe you didn't look at in that amount of depth previously, or some new things you were maybe avoiding, because we do that as humans. It's uncomfortable. We don't really want to look at it. We tuck it away. And then at the right moment, and by right moment, I mean, whatever is the perfect moment for you, but sometimes it doesn't seem like it. Poof, this comes to the surface for you to look at. And now you're being forced to look a little deeper, look a little closer at what is actually coming up for you in the process.
And that's what makes a good book. And I want to preface this. If you are not ready to lean in that way, but a book is still on your goal, you don't have to. It can be a business book. It can be the 7 steps to get rich quick, and you can leave all of that personal stuff out, but it won't connect the same way as if you put yourself in the book. If you share your personal stories, if you share a piece of yourself, and that can look like success stories. Maybe you share only the highlight reel, but it opens yourself up to the possibility of maybe book 2, you're jumping in a little bit deeper. When was it not all sunshine and roses? Right. But I don't want to scare anybody of like, oh my God, it's going to be this huge transformational journey and you're going to be an absolute mess during it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that to write a good book.
Yeah. Although that vulnerability and that authenticity piece is so connective. Yeah. It makes you that much more relatable. Yeah. And it makes the story that much more alive. Yeah. Right. So whether it's your story or it could be, like you mentioned, success stories, it could be client stories, but there's got to be a personal element to it so that you're really able to connect with your reader. Yeah. It depends heavily on what your business branding is about. If you are all about teaching, I always go the 7 steps to get rich quick. Yeah. Those people that are looking for that they might not be looking. They don't give a shit about your story. Yeah. But if you're a life coach or a spirituality coach and you think you can write a book without that element in it, you're not going to attract those people that you want to work with. You're going to attract the people that demand results and demand that you teach them those 7 tricks to get rich quick. And if they don't see results, they're coming after you. Yeah. But if you build in that human element to your book, you lay the groundwork of, I'm not perfect. I would never expect you to be perfect. Don't expect me to be perfect. This is about growth and the journey. You're going to attract those clients that are willing and ready to go on that journey with you. Yeah. And as someone who really talks about authenticity myself, I would be remiss to not include some of my journey in that for my stories. That's your brand, right? That is what I'm doing. I call myself the happiness hussy, and I see myself as an adventure guide, because coach isn't quite the right word for me. It's like more of a like mentor and guide through this adventure of life, right? So if I didn't share some of that adventure through my life, people wouldn't take me seriously as someone who talks about authenticity and having fun and creating the life that you desire. I have to show, to get that message across, how that has impacted my life. Otherwise, it's just not going to be believable. Then it's just going to be some kind of fluff that is not going to be something that they're going to take on board. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I find with all of these reasons that people choose not to write a book, there is always one underlying one, and it's fear. You talked about it earlier. It's that fear of nobody's going to read my book. Nobody's going to like what I have to say. Somebody's going to disagree with me. I'll fail. That's the fear. I won't be good at this. I mean, it could also be the fear of success, the fear of visibility, the fear of being so vulnerably exposed are all very real too. Yeah. But I do want to encourage anybody listening that there are ways to work through that. There are ways for you to create that safety for yourself. There are ways to tell your story in a way that does not feel overly exposed. When I thought about sharing my story, I'm very cautious in the way that I deliver my story to make it about me, to not make it about the other people in my life, because that's not my story to tell. My story to tell is my experience, and that does require a certain level of vulnerability. But I can pick and choose how far that goes and still relay a relatable, message. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
memoirs are really challenging that way because you want to tell your story without, defamation of someone else's name.
Yeah.
And it's really complicated for people. And that's why you hire the professionals to guide you, tell you what you should not, cannot do in your book, but still tell your story in your way, right? Yeah.
And it is really it is an adventure in its own, because there will be ups and downs. There will be new self-discoveries. There will be times you're going to have to get vulnerable, not only with other people, but with yourself.
Yeah.
To really get that message, to really draw out that the depth of it. And, in order to write this first book of mine, I really had to do some deep searching. I had to take myself back into those times when I was experiencing that to really figure out, well, what was the catalyst? What was the game changer? What were the things that I was feeling before? What were the things I was feeling after? And what was it that took me on this journey so that I could articulate it? So it does require a bit of reflection, which, you've got to be ready for a little bit of reflection. But it's such an opportunity for growth and evolution. I would definitely never let that fear stop you from doing that. And I know we all got some kind of like level of imposter syndrome, like, well, my book won't be that good. Or like, everybody, like you said, everybody's already told this. Everybody's already had this. No, they haven't. They haven't, because there is no one with your story.
Yeah, that's right.
So as long as we can keep remembering that's like the pivotal thing, right? No one has your story, only you. You are one of a kind. And, if we can keep that in mind, we can just take those baby steps. So what would you say would be the first baby step into writing a book that maybe can be used to leave a legacy, to transform the world, to make a difference, to build your business, to support your business, whatever that might look like?
Yeah. In the course that we go through, we start with kind of a 3-prong approach, and we cover it in the first 4 weeks. The first one is figure out who you're writing to. Figure out what it is that makes them unique. What assumptions are they facing? What problems do they have? And then from there, you'll be able to craft a message that will sit with them. And the mistake a lot of people make is they think, I'm writing to myself. Just writing a book I want to read. That's not true. You are absolutely not writing to yourself, because you already have this information. You already have this knowledge. You might be writing to a version of yourself 10 years ago, but that 10-year-ago person is not who you are today.
Yep. You've evolved.
So you need to know who you're talking to, and then you need to understand why you're talking to them and what you're trying to get out of it. And we call this the books. We do a mission and a vision statement. So the vision statement is 10 words or less. What is this book about? What is the intent of this book? What are your readers going to get out of it? And it's so funny, you were talking about those words that are like generic, and they basically mean nothing. And the one that always sticks out to me is beautiful. Beautiful is such an overused word that it doesn't mean anything anymore, because everybody's version of beautiful is different. So if I say, Christy, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, am I talking about your hair, your look, your personality, your ambiance? Like,
I'll assume all of that, but thank you.
Yeah, but you are beautiful. But you know what I mean? Like how you perceive it is like, oh, she likes my spirit. Yeah. That's how I perceive beautiful. I'm beautiful on the inside. It's my spirit. It's my personality. A model is going to think, I did my hair good. My face is looking good. My makeup's on point. Beautiful is overused. And
it's very subjective.
It's subjective, right? And so when we create the vision statement, we cut out all those words that are subjective. This is what my book will do. So when someone picks it up and, looks at your 10-word tagline, they know what they're getting, and they know it aligns with their value and their mission statements. And so start with who you're writing to, and then figure out why you're writing and what you need to say.
That sounds like a really solid point. And if you can stick that on your computer and look at that as you're writing, it can really help you to stay on track with, speaking that clear message, right? Creating that vision into reality, into your book, and maintain that that conversational tone that is going to speak to that person using their language, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's really crucial to get that message across. You can speak one thing, but if it's being received in a completely different manner, there can be this disconnect in between. And sometimes that's just not your person, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
sometimes we can improve our language. We can speak in the words that the ideal reader would be thinking in. That previous version maybe of ourself, what were, like I said, this is part of my journey, was really thinking about, like, what was I thinking, what was I experiencing, what did that feel like in my body, in my thoughts, in my emotions.
Yeah.
And then really speak from that place to, or not from that place, but to that place, because actually it's really important that you've moved out of that place, to be
able to write about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is actually partially, you could probably do those two things together. The two things, I mean, sort of part of your recovery process, if you will, continue, deepen it. But often you need to have certain level of emotional processing and trauma recovery before you're able to speak on a thing without the emotional flood, right?
Yeah.
We've got to process and move through that in order to be able to speak in a way that is clear and impactful without letting our emotions get in the way. And that does take just a little bit of time and effort. But I suspect that the book writing process could aid in that healing as well.
Yeah. A lot of women that come to me that want to write their book, they're so interesting because they come into the discovery call both like encouraged and excited and also reserved because
Yeah.
they're like, how much of myself am I going to have to uncover for this process?
Yeah.
And it's that, like, it's my ability to give them the space to share what they want to share, the parts of them that they're ready to share.
Yeah.
Right. And women come in and they're like, okay, I'm ready to tell my story, to share it, to change lives with this story. And then, but then they lean back and they go, please tell me how. Like, what part of that? Like, is it all of my story? Is it only the lows? Is it only the highs? Like, what part of myself am I putting out there? And that's the beautiful part about bringing you into our team. And because we are together for, like sometimes more than half a year on these projects, is we get to know you and your story and what needs to be in the book and what you aren't quite ready to share yet. And we give you that space to go through that, right?
And you
With
get to
somebody that's
choose,
trusted. Yeah, you get to choose.
right? And I think a lot of people hold back because they think, oh, well, I'm not sure, or I'm a little worried about this piece of it. But you get to choose, especially when you're self-publishing. Even if you're self-publishing with some support and some help, the ball is in your court, which is a lot different than if you're going to go the traditional publishing route, for sure, because then it is a little bit out of your hands as far as the publisher is going to want what they're going to want, and then you've got to step up to their plate instead of choosing and taking it in your direction.
Yeah. And I like the relationship I get to have with my authors because they'll come to me with their manuscript sometimes. They've written the manuscript with us and they give it to me for developmental editing, and I get to go through and circle things. And it always works this way. I'll read something. For example, I'm working with a nurse right now, and she was talking about some acute stress from working in the emergency department, like high stress environment. And it's a one-liner. In my experience as a nurse, I experienced acute stress. I have stories to tell. I circle that going, tell me the stories. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what stories you have. What did it feel like? What was going through your mind at the time? What was your environment like? Like, tell me everything, because that's what draws me in. And when I told her this, she's like, "Oh, you care? Like, why would you care about my story? Because your story is gold. Your
Yeah.
story is gold. It's what connects me to you. It makes me turn the pages and flip through your book because I want to know more." Our brains, when we read something, and this is so funny because I read a lot of fantasy and usually some rather spicy fantasy, but when we're reading it, It's as if we're experiencing it at the same time.
Right.
So all of those spicy scenes that I read, my brain is tricked into thinking I have lived them for myself. So if you tell me, like, if you give me a one sentence of like, oh, I had acute stress as an ER nurse, that doesn't do any of that chemical stuff
Right.
in my brain that makes me live it. I need to know what you felt. How were you breathing? What did your clothes, like, what was the texture? Like, were you rubbing your clothes no, methodically? Were you straightening your shirt? Were you pacing back and forth? What were you doing? What were you living to draw me into that? Because then when you tell me the story and then lay out the lesson, I'm going to apply that lesson to that story that I've just lived in my mind. Right? It cements it so much more. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about doing what I do is I read these stories and I get to circle and give them permission to go deeper.
And
Tell me.
that emotional piece is what connects us to the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
Mhm.
really can't have that experiential, I don't know, now I'm going to say experiential experience. That's doubling up. But we can't have that experience as a reader where we really truly feel like we are living that story
Yeah.
unless that emotional component is there that paints the picture to engage all of our senses into that story. That's how we connect with it. And that's what creates new neural pathways, right?
Yeah.
And that's what allows us to move forward and dig in deeper on the
That's why
patterns.
textbooks suck, right? That's why textbooks are terrible. As a university student, I have a shelf of textbooks and I have a shelf of fairy porn, basically. And which one do I remember? I remember the ones that evoked emotion. The other
Right.
one is jam-packed full of probably the most brilliant minds in their industry. And it is boring, and I have to pull it out and flip through pages just to remember what it said. But that fairy porn, it is in there forever. It is never going out.
It has changed the way that you experience life. And that's what happens when we have the emotional connection. It changes our perception. It creates a new experience that literally changes our trajectory moving forward.
Yeah. And that's so I know we're getting close to the end. Let's talk about how you use this in your business.
Yeah.
So you have created this story, this book that, connects you to your ideal reader, your ideal client, however you're using it. But what can you do with it after the fact? And Christy, you're a great person to talk about this because you have leveraged the heck out of your book. And first of all, the hard work doesn't stop after you publish it. Marketing is the next thing. And that's why in our program, we teach you how to market your book for your business. Because as you and I know, the money is not in the royalties. The
Yeah.
royalties are pennies, especially if you are competitively selling your book. Like, so for example, this book, it's 140 some pages long. And then on ebook, I think it's like $1.99. If it's even that, it might even be 99 cents at this point because, and that makes me like 30 cents on the dollar every book it's not about the royalties, but this book has earned me well over $20,000 because it's how I've leveraged it after the fact. And it only came out in December. So like it's a baby book, but it's the after the fact. So I've used it to get on international speaking stages. I have been on like 30 plus podcasts. I have my own radio show because I get to call myself an international best-selling author. They see me as this authority figure and it opens doors like crazy. And the funny part is, and this is what a lot of people, they've never read my book. These broadcasters that contact me after radio shows and say, we loved it. Do you want a segment? Like, do you want a more reoccurring show? We love that you're an international best-selling author. You're really knowledgeable on this topic. They heard me speak once and they assigned me that authority based on a book they've never read. Right? It's amazing.
It'll have people reaching out to you even.
Yeah.
I know I've had people reaching out to me who discovered my book. I've been on a lot of podcasts, on a radio show in the States as well, who reached out to me, and that particular show had other author guests like Gary John Bishop and Jen Sincero on her
Mm-hmm.
show. So, it creates opportunities
Yeah.
for exposure, and it does lend you credibility, and it provides you a very good talking point for those conversations on
Yeah.
those shows and podcasts.
Yeah.
So the clarity that you get from writing the book can really help level you up as a speaker as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, my programs were built on the back of my book, and I have incredible brand clarity because of how I consistently present my message thanks to my book.
Yeah.
And then there's that lead magnet, that thing of like they're coming to you. Let's say you're on a podcast and you're just talking about your business, and your only lead magnet is, head to my website and grab this. Now you're saying, I'm an international best-selling author of How to Write a Book. You can find it on Amazon. All of a sudden, you're on a very popular website that they can go to, and they can type your name into the search engine.
Yeah.
That level of authority. And then they're seeing something that hopefully has reviews on it and interactions and the credibility boost that comes with that. You're a celebrity in their eyes. They heard you on the radio, that you have a book. Oh my gosh, I have to talk to this person. So that lead magnet opportunity is just, it's unlike anything else. It really
Yeah.
is.
Absolutely. Just opens so many doors. So
Yeah.
take the first step, right? It's going to open door after door after door for you.
Yeah.
Larissa, tell us about your masterclass that's coming right up. And tell us about any other offers that you have as well for anybody who catches this after the masterclass is wrapped up. So they know how to find you as well. Let us know where we can find you.
Yeah. So you can head over to bestsellerbootcamp.ca and grab your free ticket to our masterclass that's coming up on June 15th. But we're running it every month as well because we've run a couple. They were wildly successful. They're so much fun. So we've decided to make it a monthly thing. So for the people watching live, June 15th is the next one. You can grab your free masterclass ticket at bestsellerbootcamp.ca. And then we'll just update that page every month so that you can continue to get in line for the masterclass. And then you get to come in and you get to, ask your questions, get 60 minutes of unfiltered information of how do you actually become a best-selling author? Because we talked a lot about the why and what goes into it, but like, how do you do it? Like, what are those 4 pillars we keep talking about? What does it mean to be a best-selling author in this day and age? And what can you do with that title? So bestsellerbootcamp.ca. You can grab your free masterclass ticket there. I'll drop the link into the comments or the comments after this as well. And then if you are at that spot where you are like, okay, I'm ready to share my story. The time is now. I know there's no perfect time, but the time is now. You can head over to, again, bestsellerbootcamp.ca, and there's a spot to book a call with us, and we will spend 45 minutes just charting out what steps you need to take next. And it's an absolutely no obligation call, but it's usually the first step that people need support in on of like, okay, where do I go from here? Like, where do I even start? And that applies to people that really want to write a book, but don't know where to start.
Right.
Or you have a manuscript, and you don't know what to do with it next. Like you kind of mentioned it earlier that the editing part is tripping you up now. So we help with that. We take you through editing and design and marketing training all the way up to published. So whether you have a book that is, the first draft is written, maybe the second draft has gone through and you're looking for that publishing, editing support, you can come to us for that. Or you're at the very, very beginning of your journey. You're pretty sure now is the time to tell your story. You want to build your business, gain that authority. Then you can go over to bestsellerbootcamp.ca and talk with me one-on-one.
Awesome. And I think you had a special offer for anybody who engages on this replay inside the Conscious Creator community as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That special offer.
It's the free tickets to the masterclass. If you just head over, I'll put the link in. You can head over, and for now, they're usually $10 tickets. I've dropped the price down to $0 just to welcome everybody in. Like, we really just want to empower you to share your story. So again, bestsellerbootcamp.ca to grab your free ticket. And in that masterclass, anyone that's registered, you get a chance to win a signed copy of my newest published book that I will mail directly to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I hope it's been really inspiring and encouraging. And to those of you sitting there and just thinking like, oh, I think I want to write a book, but I'm not sure where to start. I hope that this gave you a little nudge and just to take the first next step. Maybe that's booking a call with Larissa to just see what your next step would be. That is a next step. So encouraging you to take baby steps, just move forward, just do the freaking thing.
Do the freaking thing. Yeah, that's right.
Thing, right? That's where the magic all starts. So thanks so much for this amazing conversation, for all of the super helpful information on how you can become an authority, right?
Your authority.
I'm going to say that.
When you write it, it looks banging. Yes. When you say it, it's a little awkward.
It definitely lands better in the written format. But
yes,
yeah, trying to like get the point across. Yeah. So thanks everybody for watching. We would love your feedback. Let us know in the comments below if you have questions, if you'd like to go deeper and have a conversation with Larissa. Definitely reach out. She would be happy to do that. And likewise, if you would like to chat with me about my experience, I'm happy to have a conversation and chat with you as well. So with that said, you guys, I love you all. Let's go do some epic shit, shall we? Mwah! Are you ready to break free from self-doubt and embrace a life of empowerment? Introducing the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal, the ultimate companion to my international best-selling book, Unstuck for Women. This beautifully designed journal will take you on a transformative 90-day journey of gratitude, self-discovery, and personal growth. Each day, you'll dive deep into powerful insights, prompts, and exercises that build confidence and self-love. Align your actions with your desired feeling state and watch as your life transforms. This journal is your key to unlocking the extraordinary woman within you. So get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth like never before. You can order your copy of the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal today. Unleash your limitless potential. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Create Your Happy's special bonus season. I trust this real, raw, uncut conversation will fuel your inner fire and provide you with the practical action steps needed to propel you forward. It's time to unlock your path to consciously creating an impact and leaving your legacy. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with other women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. My guest and I would love to hear from you. You'll find the links to connect with us both in the show notes. And if you're ready to take your life, relationship, and business to the next level, I invite you to consider working with me one-on-one. Together, we'll up-level every aspect of your beautiful human journey to create the fulfilling relationships that you desire and deserve. Reach out to learn more about how we can embark on this transformative journey together. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.